What happens when the bad guys meet a boy who gives them a lesson they will never forget? Follow the story to see how they end up. The late afternoon sun filtered through amber leaves, casting a golden glow over Willamette Park in Portland. It was the kind of day where the wind moved gently, and even the river seemed to slow its flow in admiration. Laughter echoed from the playground. The tap of soccer balls rang out near the grassy field, and the air carried that soft kind of peace only late autumn could deliver. Seated alone beneath a sprawling maple tree, Elias Monroe, 17, flipped a page of his worn paperback. He wasn't reading so much as thinking, letting his eyes wander across the lines as his mind drifted. His black windbreaker hung loosely over a plain gray hoodie, and a pair of earbuds rested around his neck. Silent. He checked his watch. 4:58 p.m. Zara's ballet practice would end in 10 minutes. Their mom had asked Elias to walk her home, not because it was far, but because she believed a girl should never have to walk alone, even in daylight. Elias took that to heart. He looked up briefly, watching the soft swirl of leaves dance across the pavement. There was something meditative about it, something grounding. And then the sound, a low, rumbling growl of motorcycle engines broke the silence, rolling like distant thunder across the park. Most people didn't look twice, but Elias did. Not out of fear, just instinct. His father, when he was alive, taught him to trust those quiet warnings the world offers before things shift. 4 motorcycles. Big, loud, disruptive. They rolled in together, tires grinding the gravel beside the soccer field. The riders, all men in their 20s, clad in leather and denim, their energy as jagged as their voices. One of them laughed too loud. Another spit on the ground near a bench where an elderly couple had just been sitting. Elias returned to his book, posture relaxed but senses alert. He didn't like making assumptions. But when one of the bikers, Rhett, broad-shouldered and scowling, locked eyes with him and didn't break the gaze, Elias felt it in his gut. A ripple. Something cold. He shifted slightly, calmly, and dog-eared the page of his book. They weren't just passing through. They were circling, and somehow they had decided he didn't belong. Rhett murmured something to the man beside him, then kicked the stand on his bike. The engine died with a grunt. 2 others followed, slow and deliberate. Leather boots hit the earth, heavy and purposeful. They weren't coming to chat. Elias knew. He took a breath, not out of fear, out of preparation. The kind of breath you take before the wind changes. The kind of breath that reminded you peace isn't just the absence of violence. Sometimes it's the quiet just before a storm. The boots hit the gravel in rhythm. Crunch, crunch, crunch. Elias didn't look up right away. He felt them before he saw them. 3 shadows stretching across the grass, crawling slowly toward his feet. The lead shadow moved with a swagger, the kind that came from years of unchecked power. Rhett, whose voice was already familiar to the park with its rough edges and taunting echo, stepped forward with 2 others flanking him like vultures. "Yo!" Rhett called, his tone casual but edged with challenge. "You got a problem, suit boy?" Elias lifted his gaze. His voice was even. "No problem here." The response seemed to amuse them. One of the other bikers, a wiry guy with tattoos running down his neck, snorted and nudged Rhett. "He's polite, bro." Rhett tilted his head, stepping closer until his steel-toed boots stopped inches from Elias's outstretched legs. "You don't look like you're from around here," he said. Elias gently closed his book and set it on the bench beside him. "It's a public park." Rhett's smirk flickered. He wasn't used to calm. He was used to reactions, nervous stuttering, shifting feet, heads bowed. Elias offered him none of it. "You always dress like that to sit under trees." Rhett sneered, eyes scanning Elias's clothes, a black windbreaker over a collared shirt, pressed dark jeans, clean sneakers. "Or are you trying to look like someone?" Elias didn't answer. Silence was his weapon. A small crowd on the far side of the park had started to glance over. Parents pretending not to watch too closely. Teenagers paused mid-sentence, but no one stepped in. No one ever did at the start. "I asked you a question," Rhett said, louder now, his bravado rising with a lack of response. "I'm just waiting for my sister," Elias replied quietly. "I don't want any trouble." Rhett leaned forward, face suddenly too close. "Yeah, then maybe you should try not looking like trouble." A beat passed. Elias felt the tension in the space between them, like air before lightning. The scent of motor oil and old cologne clung to Rhett's jacket. Elias didn't flinch, not once. Then came the first shove. It wasn't hard, just enough to tip the balance. Elias shifted with it, controlled. He stayed seated. The crowd's attention sharpened. A father nearby narrowed his eyes but remained still, his toddler in his arms. Elias exhaled slowly. His mother's voice echoed in his mind. "Never give them your fear. It's the only thing they really want." "Back off," Elias said low, firm, but Rhett wasn't listening. His hands twitched, jaw tightened. And then, "Elias." A small voice sliced through the air. Zara. She was jogging up from the practice tent, her pink duffel bag slung over her shoulder, cheeks flushed from dancing. She stopped abruptly when she saw the scene. Her brother surrounded, tension hanging thick as smoke. Rhett's eyes shifted toward her. His smile returned, darker this time. "This your little ballerina," he said, cocking his head. Elias rose. He didn't move fast. He didn't raise his fists. But something in the way he stood, shoulders aligned, feet grounded, made the bikers pause. "I'm going to say this once," Elias said, his voice calm, cold. "You will not come near her." Rhett's laughter was ugly. "Ain't nobody touching her. Tough guy. But I don't take orders from kids and loafers." He turned to one of his men. "Teach him a little respect." The wiry biker stepped forward, cocky and overconfident, arms swinging loose. He reached out, but found nothing. Elias ducked. Quick. Fluid. A leg swept low. Perfectly timed. The biker's knees buckled, and he hit the ground with a surprised grunt. Before he could even curse, Elias stepped back, raising his hands not in attack, but ready. Rhett blinked. The third biker hesitated. For just a second. That was all Elias needed. A sharp pivot, a low kick to the side, not enough to break, but enough to knock the air from the man's lungs. He stumbled backward, collapsing onto one knee. The park went quiet. Every game paused. Every jogger slowed. Even the wind seemed to still. Only Rhett remained upright now, face flushed, fists clenched. He launched forward. Elias moved before the swing connected. He sidestepped. Just enough. Grabbing Rhett's wrist mid-swing and twisting downward, using his own weight to redirect the momentum. Rhett hit the dirt hard, swearing, groaning, still. Elias didn't strike him. He simply stood back. "Are we done?" he asked. Rhett panted, staring up, humiliated. Zara ran to her brother's side. Her hand clutched his. "Are you okay?" she whispered. "I'm fine," Elias said, not taking his eyes off Rhett. "Go stand behind me." She did. Rhett sat up slowly, spitting on the ground. "This ain't over," he growled, getting to his feet with the help of his bruised pride. "You think you've won something?" Elias didn't answer. That silence again was louder than any insult. Rhett gathered his guys and limping, muttering under his breath. They climbed onto their bikes, and one by one, the engines growled to life. Before they pulled away, Rhett looked over his shoulder. His voice was a snarl. "You'll see me again." Elias didn't flinch. "Then you already know how it ends." The bikers roared off, leaving dust in their wake. As quiet returned to the park, a small ripple of applause broke out. Parents, teenagers, some with phones still in hand. But Elias didn't care about the crowd. He turned to Zara, eyes softening. "Let's go home." She nodded, slipping her hand into his. And as they walked down the path, Elias felt the adrenaline begin to fade, but not the weight of what had just happened. Not the eyes that had watched, not the message that had been sent. And somewhere behind them, the quiet wind began to stir again. They didn't speak much as they walked home, just the sound of footsteps on cracked pavement, wind rustling through elm trees, and Zara's quiet breast beside him. Elias kept his eyes forward, but his mind spun in silence. He'd never wanted it to go that far. Not in a public park, not in front of his sister, but something about the way Rhett looked at Zara, like she was powerless, like Elias was nothing more than a target, had flipped a switch inside him. Not rage, not pride, responsibility. They rounded the corner onto their street. Their mother's car was in the driveway, porch light already on though the sun hadn't set. Elias squeezed Zara's hand gently. "Don't tell Mom everything," he said softly. She looked up, eyes still wide. "But Elias, people were recording. Everyone saw." Elias stopped. She was right. In the moment, adrenaline had erased the outside world. But now, fragments returned the glint of a phone camera, murmurs in the crowd, gas followed by silence. He hadn't fought for show, but others. They had watched like it was. He opened the front door. Their mother was in the kitchen, apron on, brow furrowed. "You're late," she said without looking up. "Sorry," Elias replied. "Practice ran a little long." Zara hesitated behind him. Their mother turned and saw their faces. Her hands froze mid-wipe on a dish. "What happened?" Elias glanced at Zara, then back to his mother. "There was a situation at the park." A pause. He chose his words carefully. "Some men tried to intimidate us. I stopped them." Silence stretched for a beat. Then another. Their mother placed the dish towel down, walked over, and knelt in front of her son. Her eyes scanned his face. "Are you hurt?" "No." "Did you hurt them?" Elias hesitated. "Only as much as I had to." Her jaw tightened, not from anger but worry. Then slowly, she reached up, cupped his cheek. "I'm proud of you," she said, "but I'm scared, too. You know how the world works. You're a black boy in a clean jacket. They'll twist that any way they want." Elias nodded. He knew. That night, he lay in bed staring at the ceiling, Zara's words echoing everyone saw. He checked his phone. There it was. Posted less than an hour ago. Teen drops 3 grown men in public park, protecting his sister. He clicked play. The video was shaky, but clear enough. It started just after Rhett shoved him and captured everything, every dodge, every strike, every takedown. It ended with Elias standing in front of Zara, calm and composed, saying, "Let's go home." The comments were already flooding in. This kid is a straight-up hero. His control, his discipline, that's how you fight with honor. No way a teenager moves like that. Martial artist for sure. Elias exhaled. The view count climbed by the second. He closed his eyes and turned off the screen. He wasn't interested in going viral, but it was too late. The world was watching now. By morning, the video had over 2 million views. His inbox was flooded. Classmates, strangers, reporters. Even his martial arts instructor, Sensei Araki, had left a voicemail. "You carried yourself like a warrior. Elias, I saw the clip. What you did was powerful, but what you didn't do, that's what truly showed your strength." At school, the shift was immediate. Whispers followed him through the hallways. Some clapped him on the shoulder. Others stared like he was a myth. A teacher pulled him aside and quietly said, "If anyone bothers you, let me know. You did the right thing." But not everyone was cheering. That afternoon, a black SUV pulled up in front of their house. A woman in a gray suit stepped out, Detective Rachel Torres, community liaison with the Portland Police Department. She asked to speak privately. Elias's mom sat beside him as Torres pulled out a notepad. "There's been a formal complaint," she began, "from a man named Rhett Connors. He says you assaulted him." Elias didn't flinch. Torres paused, eyeing him closely. "But there's also a viral video that paints a very different picture. Self-defense, controlled force, no excessive aggression." His mother spoke first. "Are you charging him with something?" Torres shook her head. "No, I'm here because this is gaining attention, and we need to be prepared." "For what?" Elias asked. "For the narrative." Torres said simply, "When a story like this hits, people pick sides. Some will see you as a hero. Others will try to spin it as a dangerous kid lashing out. One video doesn't settle everything. And Rhett has friends in some circles." Elias leaned forward, voice low. "I didn't fight because I wanted to. I fought because I had to." Torres nodded. "I believe you, but not everyone will." As she stood to leave, she added, "You handled yourself with more discipline than most adults I've met in my line of work. Just be ready, because this isn't over." That night, Elias sat alone at the park. Same bench, same tree. But now, he wasn't invisible. A man passed by with a nod of respect. A woman smiled warmly at him, holding her daughter's hand. Then came a stranger, mid-30s. Quiet voice. "You reminded my son of who he can be," he said. "Thank you." Elias simply nodded. In that moment, he realized something. This wasn't just about a fight anymore. It was about representation, integrity, quiet power. He hadn't asked for it, but the story was his now. And maybe, just maybe, the world needed to hear it. 3 days after the video exploded, Elias stood in the school hallway, his locker door half open, trying to pretend his world hadn't changed. But it had. The halls no longer whispered. They stared. Some faces carried awe, some envy, others suspicion. He heard it in the way a teacher's voice tightened when calling on him. He felt it in the way two parents pause when passing him in the parking lot, shielding their children like instinct. He was no longer just Elias Monroe, the quiet kid who read books under trees. He was the teen who took down three grown men in public, and not everyone liked that story. It started with a headline on a local tabloid site, "Martial Arts Teen Hero or Hidden Threat." The article twisted his calm demeanor into calculated aggression, claimed his training made him dangerous, and raised questions about whether he had gone too far. One quote stood out: "This wasn't self-defense, it was performance." That kind of force that's not fear, it's power. The author, Brennan Connors, Rhett's older brother, a freelance contributor to more than one conservative blog. Elias stared at the screen, his hands cold despite the spring air outside. His mother sat beside him, her mouth drawn tight. She didn't need to say it. He could see it in her eyes. This wasn't about facts anymore. It was about perception, and the perception was shifting. 2 days later, things escalated. A formal letter from Rhett's attorney arrived in the mail, alleging excessive force, emotional trauma, and permanent injury to Rhett's wrist. They threatened civil action if Elias didn't issue a public apology and agree to compensatory mediation. His mother read the letter silently, then folded it, then slowly, very slowly placed it on the table. "This is what cowards do when they lose in front of a crowd," she said, her voice sharp with restraint. Elias sat still, his jaw clenched. "They want me to apologize for defending my sister," he said. "They want you to look like a threat," she corrected. "To justify what they already believed about boys like you?" Elias stared at the envelope again. Part of him wanted to shout. Another part wanted to go back in time. Just sit somewhere else that day. Disappear into the pages of a book like usual. But he couldn't. Not now. The next day, he stood in front of Principal Henderson's office, waiting. Inside, a heated meeting was taking place. School board members, parents, attorneys. Rhett's legal team had filed a complaint with the district. Their claim Elias posed a potential danger to students, and his behavior on school grounds warranted disciplinary review. When the door opened, Elias was called in. Henderson, usually calm and measured, looked uncomfortable. He gestured for Elias to sit across from him. "I want to be very clear," the principal said. "There are no charges against you. You're not suspended, but this is political now." Elias tilted his head. Meaning some board members are worried about the school's image, about lawsuits, about how this looks. Elias sat in silence for a long moment. Then he asked, "What do you think?" Henderson leaned forward, eyes tired. "I think you showed restraint. I think you protected your sister. I think if it had been my daughter, I'd have prayed someone like you was nearby." A pause. But sometimes the truth gets buried under people's fear. Outside the office, a student named Lana approached him. She was shy, usually quiet in class. But today, her voice was steady. "My little brother, he gets bullied at the park sometimes. After what you did, he said he wants to take martial arts. Said maybe one day he'll be brave too." Elias blinked. He hadn't expected that. She smiled faintly. "You gave a lot of kids something to look up to, Elias. Don't let them take that from you." That night, after dinner, Elias stepped outside and walked to the same tree at Willamette Park. The sun was low, and shadows stretched long. From his jacket, he pulled out a small notebook, his father's old leather-bound journal. Inside, in faded ink, was a quote underlined twice. "When the world tells you to sit down, but your soul tells you to stand, listen to your soul." Elias closed the book. His hands were steady. The next morning, he returned to school and requested a meeting with all faculty present and the option for students to attend. Word spread fast. By noon, the auditorium was filled. Teachers sat in the front. Students gathered in hushed groups. Even Principal Henderson looked surprised by the turnout. Elias stepped onto the small stage, not with arrogance, but with presence. He wasn't dressed in anything special, just jeans and a hoodie, but he stood like someone who had already decided what mattered. "I didn't ask to be a symbol," he began, his voice calm but strong. "I didn't ask to go viral, or to be praised, or to be feared." A pause. "I just asked to be left alone, until someone made me choose between silence and protection." He scanned the crowd. No one looked away. "When my sister was threatened, I did what I was trained to do, not out of ego, but out of responsibility. I didn't escalate. I didn't retaliate. I acted with control. And when it was done, I walked away." Murmurs, nods. "I know some people are uncomfortable with that. Maybe it's easier to believe I'm dangerous than to accept I was right, but comfort has never changed anything. And if I'm being punished for protecting someone, I'll take that. I'll carry that. Every time." The room was silent. Then a voice called out, "You're not alone." Another, "We stand with Elias." Applause, then more, and more, until the auditorium filled with a single voice of support, echoing louder than any false headline. That night, a new video surfaced, not of the park, not of the fight, but of Elias's speech. He didn't fight to win. He stood to protect. And in doing so, he reminded all of us what courage really looks like. And once again, the world watched. But this time, not with doubt, with respect. The courtroom smelled faintly of old wood and tension. Elias sat beside his mother, his palms resting flat against his khakis, not clenched, not trembling, just calm. His calm had become both armor and weapon, and today, he needed both. Red had followed through with the lawsuit, civil court, intent to cause bodily harm, pain and suffering, loss of income, psychological trauma. It was all there, neatly typed, full of exaggeration and half-truths. His legal team had attached freeze frames from the viral video, selectively edited to make Elias look aggressive. One screenshot had his fist mid-air. Another caught Rhett mid-fall, his face twisted in pain. They didn't show the moments before the smirk, the shove, the threat to Zara. They didn't show the control, the restraint. But Elias didn't flinch. Because he wasn't just fighting for himself anymore. He was fighting for what his actions meant. Their attorney, Ms. Dana Reed, was sharp and seasoned. She had taken the case pro bono after seeing Elias's speech at school, calling it the clearest representation of integrity under fire she'd seen in years. "Let them twist their stories," she had told them in the car that morning. "Facts don't lie, and neither does character." Still, as the trial began, the tension returned. Rhett's lawyer painted Elias as overtrained, underregulated, suggesting that martial arts had turned him into a danger, a teenage vigilante looking for a reason to use force. Elias's mother bristled. Mrs. Reed held her hand calmly. Then came the witness list. Some faces Elias expected: students, bystanders, the coach from the soccer field. They testified with clarity. He didn't start anything. He only acted when they circled him. He was trying to protect his sister. But it wasn't until the third day that something shifted. A quiet knock on the courtroom doors. The bailiff spoke with the judge, then nodded. "I'm told we have a late witness," the judge said, raising an eyebrow. A woman entered. Dark pantsuit, confident stride, a badge clipped to her belt. Detective Rachel Torres. Elias straightened in his seat. She took the stand without fanfare, adjusted the mic, and met the eyes of every juror. "I'm here today not as a law enforcement officer," she began, "but as a mother and as someone who has studied countless cases of excessive force." She looked at Elias. And this young man, what he demonstrated wasn't violence. It was discipline, tactical awareness, emotional control. I've seen trained adults in my department lose their temper faster than he did. The judge leaned forward slightly. Rhett's lawyer shifted in his chair. Torres continued. Had he reacted with even 10% more aggression, we might be having a different conversation. But he didn't. He acted with restraint under pressure, and I'm here to say that's not just rare, it's honorable. The room stilled. Rhett looked down at his lap. The verdict came 3 days later. In favor of the defendant, all claims dismissed. The courtroom broke into quiet applause. Elias closed his eyes. Not from relief, from release. Outside. The cameras were waiting. Reporters, bloggers, podcasters. But Elias didn't speak. His mother guided him down the steps. Zara ran up and threw her arms around his waist, her pink backpack bouncing as she jumped. "You did it," she whispered. "No," Elias said, smiling gently. "We did." In the days that followed, something shifted in the town of Portland. The video of Elias's speech was now being used in classrooms to talk about conflict resolution. Local dojos invited him to speak about nonviolence. A high school counselor requested he meet with young students who had trouble managing anger, not to correct them, but to guide them. He accepted every invitation, not because he wanted to be famous, but because he wanted to be useful. One afternoon, as he packed up his bag after speaking at a youth center, an older man approached him. He wore a blazer with a worn elbow patch and carried a notebook under one arm. "You don't know me," the man said, "but I used to teach your father." Elias turned, eyebrows lifting. "You knew him." "Stephen Monroe was one of the most balanced fighters I ever trained," the man said, smiling. "But more than that, he was kind, always thinking, always listening." He paused. "You have his eyes, you know, and his stillness." Elias nodded, swallowing the lump rising in his throat. "Thank you," he whispered. The man patted his shoulder. "Keep standing. Quiet strength like yours. It's louder than most people realize." That night, Elias walked back to the maple tree at Willamette Park. It was quiet. The bench still had that small chip in the wood where Zara had accidentally dropped her water bottle. He sat, pulled out his father's old journal again, and read a passage he hadn't noticed before. "Don't be afraid when people try to silence you. Be afraid only when you forget why you spoke in the first place." Elias smiled. A soft wind moved through the branches above, brushing his face like a gentle affirmation. This wasn't the end of the fight, but it was the end of fear. It was early spring when the city of Portland hosted its annual Youth Empowerment Summit, a quiet event, nestled in a modest community center. Far from the flash of headlines and the noise of social media, Elias Monroe stood backstage, dressed simply in a charcoal shirt and jeans. No suit, no spotlight. He didn't need either. He had come at the invitation of a local teacher, someone who had seen the courtroom video, then the speech, someone who had watched a young man stand tall while the world tried to bend him down. Now, rows of folding chairs filled the hall. Students from across the district, some curious, some restless, others completely unaware of who he was. And that was okay. He wasn't here to be a symbol. He was here to be real. When his name was called, there was no thunderous applause, just polite claps and a few quiet murmurs. He stepped onto the stage, paused at the podium, and looked out at the faces staring back at him, some guarded, some hopeful. He didn't raise his voice. He didn't perform. He spoke like someone who understood the weight of silence. "I used to believe that strength was about how much you could hold back," he began, hands resting lightly on the edge of the podium. "How still you could stay when someone tried to shake you." He paused. "But I've learned sometimes strength is knowing when to move and when to stand." The room quieted, fully. "I didn't ask for what happened to me. I didn't want to be the kid in the video. I didn't want people whispering in hallways or lawyers calling me names in courtrooms. All I wanted was to sit under a tree and wait for my sister." He looked down, then up again, steady. "But life doesn't always care what we want. Sometimes it gives us a choice: stay silent or stand up. And when that moment comes, I hope you know your worth. I hope you remember that protecting others isn't weakness. That kindness is not something to apologize for. And that being calm under pressure isn't passive, it's power." A beat. That day in the park didn't make me strong. It revealed I already was. He smiled faintly. "And so are you." After his talk, a line quietly formed. Some wanted to shake his hand. Others wanted to ask questions. A few just wanted to say thank you and leave. But then came a small boy, maybe 10, holding his mother's hand. His eyes were wide behind thick glasses, and his shoulders hunched as if bracing for the world. He tugged gently at Elias's sleeve. "Do you think I can be brave too?" the boy asked. Elias crouched to his level. "Brave isn't something you become. It's something you already are. You just need the right moment to see it." The boy beamed. And Elias knew, in that moment, he'd left more behind than a viral video. He'd planted a seed. Later that evening, Elias walked through the old park again. The sun dipped low, brushing orange across the sky. Kids played soccer. Families picnicked beneath trees. He passed the bench. It was empty now. He smiled, slowing for just a second, his fingers grazing the wood. So much had happened there. So much had changed. He remembered Rhett's eyes, the way the crowd had looked at him, the deafening beat of his own heart, but it no longer haunted him, because he had done the right thing. And the right thing never stays buried for long. Back home, his mother sat on the porch, sipping tea. She looked up as he arrived. "How was the talk?" she asked, though her tone already held the answer. He sat beside her. "They listened," he said. "Really listened." She nodded. "You've grown up a lot, Elias." He looked down at his hands. I think I just remembered who I am. She smiled softly, brushing a lock of his hair off his forehead. Your father would be proud, she whispered. Elias didn't speak, but he didn't need to. The silence said everything. That night, as stars blinked awake in the sky, Elias opened his father's journal one final time. There were pages he hadn't read yet, lessons about discipline, manhood, forgiveness, but one passage, scribbled in slanted handwriting, stood out. The world will try to measure your strength by your reaction. But real strength, it lives in your intention. Make sure yours always comes from love. Elias ran a finger under the words, then closed the cover slowly. He didn't know where life would take him. College, maybe coaching younger kids, maybe writing a book. He wasn't sure, but he knew this. He would live with stillness in his soul and fire in his purpose. He would speak when it mattered, protect when it was right, and lead not by shouting, but by showing. Because some stories don't end in applause or headlines. Some stories echo quietly in the lives they touch, in the strength they awaken, in the legacy they leave behind. Elias Monroe's story didn't end in the park. It began there, and it would continue in every boy who chose restraint over rage, in every girl who realized her voice mattered, in every hand that reached out when silence would have been easier. Because sometimes, the quietest strength leaves the loudest legacy. 6 months later, the old community gym had a new addition. A hand-painted sign hung above a modest studio space at the back. Monroe Youth Center, strength through stillness. Inside, soft mats lined the floor. Wooden racks held beginner uniforms. And on the far wall, in black brush strokes, were the words Elias had once read in his father's journal. Real strength lives in your intention. Let it come from love. Elias stood barefoot on the mat, facing a small group of students, 10 in total, boys, girls, ages 8 to 16, some shy, some scarred, all curious. He bowed slightly. This isn't a place to learn how to fight, he began, voice calm. It's a place to learn when not to. The room was still. You'll learn how to move. Yes, how to block, how to strike, how to protect. But more importantly, you'll learn how to breathe, how to think, how to choose what kind of person you want to be when life gets loud. A little girl in the front row raised her hand. Will it make us strong? Elias smiled. You're already strong. You just haven't met that part of yourself yet. Laughter rippled gently across the room. After class, Elias walked out into the evening light. Zara was waiting on the steps, legs swinging, earbuds in. She looked up, grinning. You're officially a sensei now, she teased. Hardly, he chuckled. Just someone who's trying to give back what he was given. She stood and handed him a small paper bag. Inside 2 homemade cookies, slightly lopsided. For after class, she said, because strength also needs snacks. He laughed again, full, deep, free. That night, as they walked home together, Elias paused under the familiar old maple tree at Willamette Park. The bench was still there. So was the breeze. But the boy who once sat quietly, waiting and watching, was no longer the same. Not because of what he had done, but because of who he had become. Someone who knew that courage didn't always roar. Sometimes it simply stood, calm, ready, grounded in purpose. As they walked away, The city lights blinked on behind them. Somewhere far off, another boy might be sitting alone, unsure of his strength, and maybe, just maybe, one day, he'd hear Elias's story and realize he wasn't alone at all. In today's world, where tension often escalates faster than understanding, Elias Monroe's story is a reminder that true strength isn't about domination. It's about discipline, intention, and the courage to stand firm without becoming aggressive. We live in a time where people are quick to judge, quicker to record, and often slow to listen. But Elias showed that even in the face of provocation, you can choose control over chaos, protection over pride. His quiet resistance challenges the notion that louder means stronger. He stood not to prove something, but to protect someone, and that distinction matters more now than ever. Whether you're a student being underestimated, a parent trying to teach your child calm in a turbulent world, or simply someone navigating injustice with grace, this story speaks to you. It teaches us that legacy isn't built through fame or force. It's shaped by how we respond when no one expects us to rise. Elias didn't set out to be a role model, but his actions lit a path for others to follow. In a world full of noise, be the quiet strength, the kind that speaks through integrity and echoes through the lives it touches.